Every day, Merwan would regularly strike his forehead on the stone floor of his room for hours. Some days in the afternoon, between 1 and 5 o'clock, he would go to the Golibar area of Pune or to the isolated Pataleshwar cave temple. At the Tower of Silence, sitting under a tree, he would continue this gruesome ritual, knocking his forehead on a rock or against a stone wall. He was not merely tapping his head on the stone surface, but pounding and pounding his brow upon it with full force, always inflicting a bloody wound. After knocking his head hour after hour against stone, Merwan would collapse. He would then wipe the blood off his face, clean himself, and tie a large kerchief or hand towel around his forehead to serve as a bandage and a makeshift turban, thus concealing the wound from his family when he returned home. The local neighbors and his relatives, in particular, thought that by tying a kerchief around his head, Mirwan was complying with some new fashion trend. Little did they know the real reason for wearing the kerchief. Only Mirwan's closest friends knew how he spent his mornings and afternoons, but they did not reveal this to Mirwan's family, though they themselves did not understand his strange behavior. While in Lahore with the Alfred Theatrical Company, Mirwan had also pursued this painful self inflicted practice. He would manage the company and its performances until late in the night. During the day, when the rest of the group was sleeping, he would rise early and quietly slip away to a deserted place where he would bang his forehead against a flagstone for hours. To come down from the highest spiritual state of God consciousness, I am God, to the normal human consciousness, I am a man, entails unimaginable suffering. The striking of his forehead was somehow a comfort to Mirwan during the extreme anguish of his descent from the God state to normal or worldly consciousness. Mirwan himself later described these days of seeming agony. This constant hammering of my head was the only thing that gave me some relief during my real suffering of coming down, which I have repeatedly said is indescribable. The relief I felt by banging my forehead on the stones can be compared to that which a strong cup of tea gives an ordinary man. In actuality, the pain of regaining normal human consciousness was so great that only this physical suffering of striking his head methodically could ease it to some extent. Soon after Mirwan returned to Pune from Lahore, his father fell ill and had to be hospitalized in Bombay for surgery. Mirwan felt obliged to look after Cafe Sheriar in his absence. He would be there the entire day from early morning, handling the cash register and generally overseeing the business. During those days, Mirwan's mind was more engaged in writing poetry and ghazals than in concentrating on the restaurant business. Yet he was neither careless nor easily deceived handling its affairs. He simply had no interest in making money. One day, while in the cafe, he composed the following ghazal in Persian, which was later translated. The face of the beloved. Now that I have seen the face of the beloved, it has taken control of my heart. Longing has cut my heart into pieces, leaving nothing but the stain of separation. Take the beloved's love as his mercy, or his curly locks as a snare. His remembrance is like the nightingale's longing for the flower's nectar. Though his remembrance has escaped my mind, his face is etched forever on my heart. When the self is annihilated, duality disappears, and the lover himself becomes God. The lover and the beloved's heart are ever in the same place. The beloved is always in the heart, and the heart is always in the beloved. O apparent renunciant, You make a spectacle of praying, but you ask God to fulfill your desires. Remember, for a real lover, there is nothing to ask because God does not remain hidden in his heart. The ways of the masters are peculiar. They make one laugh and weep simultaneously. Outwardly, they appear indifferent, but inwardly, they have love. There is abuse on their lips, but blessings in their heart. Some say the beloved's abode is in the tavern. Some say it is in the mosque. O Huma, what are you searching for outside? Know well that God dwells within your heart. By the time Sheriarji returned from Bombay, Merwan had written several more ghazals along similar themes, which he would share with Bobo. In the beginning of 1917, Sheriarji sold his tea shop, borrowed money, and obtained a license to open a toddy shop on Sachapir Street. Mirwan started working in his new toddy shop 2 hours a day. He did all sorts of chores to help his father, washing and filling bottles, sweeping the floor, and selling drinks. At times, when a customer became intoxicated from too much to drink, Merwan would sit with him and sing Tukaram's abhangs, devotional songs. The drunkard would merrily join in, clapping his hands and singing along. In this manner, the toddy shop truly became a tavern of song, with Merwan as its keeper, distributing the wine of love to all who came there. At other times, Merwan would advise certain clientele to drink moderately or to abstain from liquor altogether. Some of these men he would not serve. When Mimo heard about this, she rebuked her son, asking caustically, Merog, are you trying to share in your father's business or trying to ruin it? What is wrong with you? If people stop drinking toddy, how will the business survive? Bobo, appreciating Mirwan's nature, paid little heed to Memo's remarks, and the customers too began addressing him respectfully as Mirwanji. Although Mirwanji was working hard each day in the toddy shop, actually he was still not completely gross conscious. His actions were governed solely by the impulses of the divine will manifesting through him. For example, one morning when Merwanji was riding his bicycle to the toddy shop, he sped past the shop, cycling as far as away the Mahabaleshwar road 8 miles outside Pune. Only when he had ridden halfway up the Katraj Ghat road did he seemingly realize he was going in the wrong direction. As he was ascending the steep road, pedaling became difficult. Only then did it dawn on him that he was in the hilly regions headed toward Mahabaleshwar. He then rode back to Pune, arriving late at the toddy shop. On Friday, 16th February 1917, Mirwanji composed an exceptionally beautiful ghazal. How wonderful is the murderous mercy of God! His mercy has adorned the rose with thorns. What justice exists in the glory of God, there is cruelty in his kindness. It matters not whether wine is accepted by any religion. I long for the intoxication of love. O God, what bliss lies in love's intoxication! The wine of man can never bestow it. One cannot experience love by reading books. Love can never be described in words. I have never read about real love, for it cannot be written. Portray love with the blood of your heart, and it will be yours. O God, grant me the gift of your union. I have died in your separation, but in your ledger you need not count the torments. I'm feeling away from you. Blood is spilling from my heart, which has become like minced meat. But missing is that salt which you sprinkle in the wounds of the heart. Why should one question the lovers of God about him? one should long to ask God directly. O God, you are found in the question as well as in the answer. I have seen the same God everywhere. His abode is in every heart. God is the wine cellar in the house rich in purity, and He is ever present in the house of ruination. Why should one feel restless experiencing misery, cruelty, and the difficulties of the world? O Huma, if God showers His mercy upon you, then pleasure is felt in pain. Merwan ji considered this ghazal to be special, and after composing it, he mailed it to the well known Gujarati author Soma Sohrabji Desai of Navsari. Merwan ji enclosed this note: Soma, I'm sending you my humble ghazal which I composed yesterday. Please accept it. A lover of God, Huma. This ghazal was to have a profound effect on Soma Desai, as will be seen later on. During 1917, Merwanji suggested to Behramji that they become partners and open another toddy shop in some village, where besides doing business, they could do public and social service and also meditate in solitude. At no time was it necessary for Merwan to meditate in solitude, because he had experience of the supreme reality. But for the sake of creation, and especially for seekers after truth and those connected with him, he had to do it. Behramji would usually act in respectful accordance with Merwanji's dictates and guidance in everything he did, and in this way, he can be considered as the first of Merwanji's close disciples or Mandali. Merwanji's proposal appealed to Behramji, who applied for a liquor license soon after. However, when it was granted, Merwanji refused to go through with the business arrangement since the liquor license was not in Behramji's name, as he had instructed, but was in Behramji's brother's name. This was a hard lesson for Behramji, and he remembered to always follow Merwanji's words literally from then on. In April 1917, an ardent devotee of Upasni Maharaj invited the master to attend the foundation laying ceremony for a medical dispensary he was opening for the poor in the Sion area of Bombay. Upasni, with many of his followers, graced the occasion and sent word for Merwanji to meet him there. It was during this occasion that Merwanji first met a 27-year-old disciple of Upasni's named Gustad Nusirvanji Hansotia. During their conversation, Merwanji's remarkable insights made a deep impression upon Gustadji, and he wanted to know more of what Merwanji had to say about spiritual matters. However, Merwanji left Bombay that same day, much to Gustadji's appointment. After the partnership with Behramji was cancelled, Merwanji again focused his energies on his father's toddy shop. Working regularly for 2 hours each day, as usual, he continued visiting Babajan every evening. During the day, he would find a secluded place to continue his grim practice of pounding his forehead for hours at a time on a stone. He continued to conceal the resulting wound with a large kerchief or hand towel. One day in the toddy shop, Merwanji composed the following ghazal dedicated to Babajan, to whom it was also read. It was written using both Hindi and Urdu and later translated. O beloved Master, I am eternally grateful to you. If I had 100,000 lives, I would sacrifice every one of them at your feet. You drowned me in the eternal ocean of oneness and transformed me into an ocean like yourself. In the twinkling of an eye, you made a lover into God, and God I have become. O Emperor of Masters, O Ocean of Mercy, O Perfection personified, Sadguru. If your merciful glance falls on anyone, a beggar turns into a king. Gods, goddesses, angels, celestial beings, and men are all awed by the brilliance of your divinity, O enlightened master of the three worlds. Even if I were to transform my body into the sandals of your feet, it would be nothing in comparison with what you have done for Mirvan. After the onset of the First World War, Beli, who was then living in Bombay, working in an Irani restaurant, had enlisted in the British Indian Navy. His duties as a storekeeper took him to England, France, Greece, Egypt, and Arabia. While he was out of the country, Beli maintained his friendship with Mirwan through correspondence. Beli would read Mirwanji's letters not once but many times. Poems from Mirwan were often included. Often, when Beli's ship docked in Bombay, Mirwan was waiting to meet him. Beli related. During my total field service of 3 years, 1.5 years of sailing on the sea, and another on land duty at Aden, I maintained my correspondence with Mirwan through letters. And the moment my steamer would anchor at Bombay port, Mirwan would especially come and visit me on the steamer. Mirwan would keep tabs from the daily newspapers about the arrival and departure of steamers, and as soon as the announcement of the arrival of my ship Syria would appear, he would come and wait at the docks beforehand. At times he would come in the company of Jamshed, but mostly he would come alone. He would have tea, breakfast, and lunch with me on the steamer. In the evening, after obtaining leave for a few hours from my superiors, we both would go and fetch Jamshed from his small room at Baikala, and after spending some time together, we would depart to our respective destinations. Once it so happened that for some reason, either there was a delay on my part in replying to Mirwan's letter, or maybe I received his letter late. I cannot say for sure, but because of this delay, Mirwan, becoming anxious, sent me a simple postcard, and when that postcard was received by me, I saw only a rhyme consisting of these two lines. इंतज़ारी से दिल होता है कबाब, भेज प्यारे बेली jaldi कुछ जवाब. While waiting, my heart is becoming a kebab. Dear Belly, quickly send a reply. In two lines, Merwan encapsulated all his feelings. His sense of humor, his love, his longing to hear from me, together with his request to send a reply soon. I must have read these lines hundreds of times over the years. After several years, Belly became tired of his life at sea and applied for a land position. His application was accepted, and he obtained leave for 1 month and came to Pune. Bailey promptly went in search of Mirwan and found his friend helping his father in the toddy shop on Sachapir Street. It was a happy reunion, hoping to induce Mirwan to join the military. Bailey narrated his experiences in the foreign lands. Bailey had sorely missed Mirwan's companionship and wished to regain his intimate friendship, but Mirwan refused to enlist. Bailey described the toddy shop. After retiring from the hotel, tea shop business, Sheriarji entered excise business, that is liquor, toddy, opium, ganja, and such other narcotics, legal at the time, including the sale of a piyush drink. Piyush is a Sanskrit word meaning the food of the gods, ambrosia or nectar. The drinks were popular among Iranis, prepared with sweetened buttermilk, ground almonds, nutmeg, cardamom, other nuts and spices, and in this case, some intoxicants probably. He got good clientele and made good money. Mirwan also started helping him in this business, but on a limited scale. Mirwan did not take any interest in the opium, ganja, or liquor shops. He only took some interest in being a cashier at the toddy shop and took pleasure in filling up quickly the empty toddy bottles. He knew that the toddy was not totally pure. It was necessary to add intoxicants to give it an added kick. Whenever any customer would ask for high quality toddy, Merwan would unhesitatingly say, "If you want pure toddy, go have it while it is being removed from the tree. We do not have pure stuff here." Further, he might add, "As it is yesterday's stale stuff. Not only that, it is mixed with masala. It would be better if you do not drink it. What is the point in wasting your money as well as spoiling your health?" Those aware of Mirwan's light-hearted and cheerful nature would take all this as a joke and would not take this advice seriously. Not only that, but they would be tempted to enter the shop only if they saw Mirwan at the cashier's desk or busy filling the bottles. Otherwise, they would stay away from the shop. Mirwan would leave the shop when his father arrived in the evening, and thus, because of Mirwan's presence, the shop would be crowded and a cheerful atmosphere would prevail. But when Shehryarji was sitting in the shop, there would be less crowd and less jubilation, as most of them, out of respect for him, would make less noise. Merwan would not charge any money to a very poor person who had a small quantity of the drink. They would get their drink free of charge. One amongst them was this middle aged Harijan who would sit outside the shop on the road and would take full advantage morning and evening of Mirwan's generosity. He would compose and sing songs not only in praise of other saints but also of Mirwan. This was liked by all, and Mirwan too encouraged him. He used to take financial help from Mirwan, and his association with Mirwan lasted for a long time. Beli had been largely unaware of Mirwan's contact with Baba Jan and Upasni Maharaj, but during the month of his leave, he noticed a change in his friend. I felt a transformation in Mirwan's attitude. The old Mirwan was no more, and I was in the company of a new Mirwan. This is what I felt in my heart all the time. As days went by, I became more and more aware of Mirwan's detachment and aloofness. Beli sought out Mirwan's company every chance he could, continuously trying to persuade him to join the military. Finally, Mirwan gave in. "I will join the navy with you," he said. "I will agree on the condition that I be stationed wherever you are." Beli confidently promised to arrange it, since it was wartime and the military needed all the recruits it could muster. Early the next morning, Beli contacted his superior, who also happened to be in Pune, and then took Mirwan to the Navy recruitment office and had him enlisted. Mirwan signed the necessary induction papers and was instructed to wait for the orders to report for duty. Beli was delighted. Thus, Mirwan joined the Navy and offered himself in the service of the British Empire and his country. Of course, Mirwan had not spoken about his decision with his parents, and no one except Bailey knew what he had done. A few days passed while Mirwanji continued his daily duties at his father's toddy shop. Then one evening, a Maratha clerk working at the recruitment office mentioned to his own father about Mirwan's enlistment. The father was a regular customer at Bobo's shop and went for a drink as usual. Merwanji knew him also, but he rarely worked in the toddy shop in the evening. The man started talking to Bobo. "Your son should be complimented," he said. "You must be very proud of him. It's a big sacrifice on his part to volunteer and serve his country in this bloody war." Bobo at first could not follow what the man was talking about and thought he was under the influence of the toddy. He started making light of it, teasing the man. "My friend, you have drunk too many tonight. You don't know what you're saying. My Merog a recruit? Nonsense. Merog is not the military sort." The man was surprised by Bobo's remarks and disclosed the fact of the matter. "I'm telling you, Shehryar, it is true. My son told me that Merwanji signed the papers. Only then did Bobo believe him, and he became anxious. When Merwanji returned home from his nightly visit with Baba Jan, Bobo confronted him immediately. 'Son, I have heard some shocking news. Have you enlisted in the Navy? Merwanji replied, Yes, father, that is a fact. I'm joining to be near Delhi and we are going to travel all over the world together. Listen to me, son, Bobo said. You must stay away from such things. Have your name withdrawn tomorrow. Mirwanji refused, pointing out, Once my name has been registered, it cannot be stricken. I want to join. Mirwanji further pleaded, Bobo, give me your permission. Give me your willing permission to join the Navy. Bobo was obstinate and refused to hear another word. Nonsense! You're not meant for such things, Merog. I do not want you to go away. It is difficult for me to let you out of my sight for even a few days, much less months or years at a time. Merog, you're not meant for such a life. I'm going to that Navy office tomorrow myself and make certain that your name is erased from the enlistment list. Bobo's remarks did not affect Merwanji, and he disregarded his father's threat. But the very next morning, Bobo did go to the head recruiting officer and, using his influence and a thick packet of currency notes, had his son's name removed. Mirwanji appeared disappointed, and moreover, so was Bailey. Bobo made Bailey promise not to talk to Mirwan about such things or he would forbid him to visit. Bailey promised and continued to meet Mirwanji at the toddy shop every day during the remainder of his leave. The two friends reminisced about their childhood days and mutual friends, discussed poetry and talked about Bailey's future. Bailey continued to be deeply impressed by Mirwan's poetic gift. In Bailey's account, he recorded this incident from that time. For Merwan, it was simply child's play to rhyme or compose verses. He did it with seemingly effortless ease. He had a great facility. No sooner he took a pen in hand, it would start writing on the paper. Moreover, at times on the spur of the moment, he would speak in verses. One time I challenged his ability and asked him to write a congratulatory poem on the occasion of the wedding of a mutual friend named Minu. Though Merwan had no interest in such themes, just to please Minu, who was also present, he wrote a splendid song which he himself sang. The song was so beautiful that I was taken aback at his natural gift and all my doubts vanished. When Beli's leave ended, he received new orders to be ready to proceed to Egypt aboard a hospital ship. Since his application for transfer to land duties had been approved, this new development shocked him, and he immediately went to the officer in charge to check the records. The officer cancelled his appointment to Egypt. He then ordered Belly to leave on the next ship for Zanzibar within 24 hours. This time, Belly did not try to have the order changed. When Mirwanji was informed of Belly's transfer, he remarked, I would never have liked going to a place like Africa. So Mirwanji persuaded Belly to try to get his orders changed. Although it seemed unlikely, Belly met with the officer concerned, and after much persuasion, his pleas were successful. Someone else was appointed to go to Africa in his place, and he was then ordered on the next ship to Aden. Belly was informed that the ship's sailing date had not been finalized and that he would have to wait in Bombay. Mirwanji again remarked, See if you can get the order cancelled. Belly tried but failed. Mirwanji was unhappy about Bailey's leaving India. He said, Come with me and meet Babajan. Take her darshan before going to Aden. This did not appeal to Belly and he resisted, but Merwan insisted he come. Later, Belly wrote about his encounter. I took Babajan to be nothing short of a sorceress. I did not believe in her in the least and bore contempt for her. She looked like a mad beggar. I disliked it that Merwan was calling himself her disciple. When Merwan used to visit Babajan, I used to tease and make fun of him. And here he was advising me to have Babajan's darshan. I did not like the idea of seeing her, and I was irritated by Merwan's insistence. In spite of that, I could not displease him, so I consented and had to approach the ancient woman. My only request was that I would not like to meet her in broad daylight, but in the evening after sunset. In those days, Baba Jan had nowhere to stay except underneath a large old neem tree near Charbaudi. She was seated, leaning against the trunk in a manner as if she were eagerly awaiting my arrival. Only two other persons were standing nearby, praying with folded hands. Mirwan had told me to first put my head on her feet, but I refused, proudly saying, I will bow only to Him, God, wherever He may be. Except for Him, neither my body nor my mind will I lower to anyone else. I sensed that Mirwan was grieved by my expression of arrogance, but showed no reaction and gave me permission to act as I liked before her. I went to Baba Jan alone. The instant Baba Jan saw me, I raised my right hand in salutation to her, saying, Salam, Baba Jan. Welcome, my son, welcome. She mumbled in an almost inaudible, sweet, and humble voice. Come and sit near me. Who are you? From where do you come? Mirwan had anticipated such a question and told me to tell her, I am your Khaksar Khadim, humble servant, and your son has sent me. To this she replied, Except God, who else is my son? Well, if you have come from God Himself, I will inform Him that my son has met me. Anything else? Without understanding what she meant except her last words, I explained that I was in the Navy and was about to proceed to Aden, and would she permit me to do so and give me her blessings? The moment she heard the word Aden, she was startled as if from sleep and straightened her back from her drooping posture. Lifting her left fist, she lightly tapped her chest twice, closed her eyes, and repeated softly, Aden, Aden. Then, in a loud voice quite different from her previous sweet one, she spoke with a hoarse whisper as if moved by some sorrow. Aden is my land. It has come out of me. I created it. But today it wants to mock me. She stopped, then stared intently at my face for 1 or 2 seconds, heaved a sigh, and the sweet voice returned. Well, son, you may go, she said very softly. Khuda Hafiz. May God protect you. Then she asked, When will we meet again? When you wish, Baba Jan. When it pleases you, I said. My reply sent her deep in thought. Then she rambled the words. You will have to wait. To wait for 5 years. He tells me 2 years. No, no, I won't allow 2 years. So come exactly after a year and a half. She continued, but I could not follow the meaning of her words. I have come here after staying there 7 years. Many used to stay with me, and I will be with you. Also, I will keep my child with me. I am with the world, and God is with me. Saying this, she extended her left hand to me, which in veneration I held, and submitting to some secret feeling, I kissed. I heaved a sigh of relief that the meeting had come to an end, and quickly joining both hands, bowed to her and returned. Mirwan was waiting for me in a nearby cafe. I informed him everything in detail about my first ever meeting with Baba Jan. He heard me out without interruption. Then Mirwan remarked, It is better that we don't understand the rigmarole of all these great saints. Whatever she has signified about you, I believe refers to some coming calamity. With regret, Mirwan continued, and from what I think of it, I can say that the future does not hold well for you, Belly. You will have to face terrible difficulties and you will have to suffer much. May God protect you. What can be done, Belly? Mirwan asked rhetorically. Whatever is written in your fate, you have to go through. But one thing you did well, you took my advice and met Baba Jan. Because of her blessings, you will return safely. I asked Merwan the implication of Baba Jan's instruction to come after 1.5 years. Merwan did not respond and ended the conversation. Still, I really did not give much credence to either Baba Jan or Merwan's warning. Consequently, I did not pay much attention to what they said. I left the same night for Bombay, where I had to wait a full month to catch a ship, not knowing what lay in store for me. During this period, Mirvan told Peli about Upasni Maharaj, also and of how great a master he was. During a conversation about Maharaj, Mirvan ji became inspired and composed the following arti, song of worship in Hindi and Urdu to Upasni Maharaj. O Master Upasni Maharaj, the Emperor of sadhus and saints, justice, equity, and staunch love made you their king. Let us always meditate on you and repeat your name. O Master, you are formless, attributeless, the purest of all. By annihilating your ego, you became God Himself. Liberate us from the clutches of Maya and bestow on us the name of God. Free us from this worldly bondage and hand us the cup of divine wine to drink. O Master, you're formless, attributeless, the purest of all. Keep us away from the snares of lust, greed, and anger. Bestow on us divine light by annihilating our ego. Help us to cross the sea of illusion. O Master, you're formless, attributeless, the purest of all. We, your servants, give up all religious ceremonies and rituals for your sake. So liberate us from these and let us always be near your feet. We dedicate to you our body, mind, and soul. Come what may, make us sink or swim. O Master, you're formless, attributeless, the purest of all. Turn sinners into saints by making us virtuous. In your mercy, make our soul one with God. You are all powerful, all merciful, all gracious, the very essence of freedom. O Master, you're formless, attributeless, the purest of all. You reside in all, the rich and the poor, the good and the evil. You see only God in everything and everywhere. You are always the same. You have no religion or caste. O Master, you're formless, attributeless, the purest of all. You are the embodiment of truth, all knowledge, power, and bliss, the Master. Together we offer you our heartfelt prayers and worship. O Yogi Raj, King of Yogis, your devotees salute and bow down to you again and again. O Master, you're formless, attributeless, the purest of all. The marvelous thing was that not only did Merwanji write this ghazal in a matter of minutes, but also at the same time he was attending to the toddy shop's customers. After some time, the arti was published in the Gujarati weekly newspaper, Kaisare Hind, which had also published Merwanji's ghazal dedicated to Baba Jan. On different occasions, during 1917, Baba Jan urged Merwanji, "My son, go, now get your share from a Hindu." Meanwhile, in July 1917, Upasni Maharaj moved from the Khandoba temple in Shirdi to the crematory grounds in the village of Sakori. Merwanji became a regular visitor to Upasni's new abode, traveling to Sakori by train, sometimes with a companion and sometimes alone. In the train, Merwanji often chose to sit on the floor near the door of the toilet in the dirty third-class compartment. He would get off the train at Chitali station and walk 9 miles to Sakori. To strangers, Merwanji appeared as a person suffering the effects of too much alcohol. At times, he would stagger like a drunken man because, despite his activities in his father's toddy shop, Merwanji was still not completely gross conscious. He was only slightly aware of the world around him and did not feel his physical body as an ordinary man does. Mirwanji was embodying the consciousness of God, and he was able to function in the world only because of stirring of the song within him. He was, so to speak, operating on automatic pilot, moved by impulses guided by the divine will. Once, while going to Sakori alone, he had the impulse to get off the train at the Kopergaon railway station instead of Chitli, which comes first. It was 10 o'clock at night and bitter cold, but Merwanji, wearing only a light cotton coat and pants, started walking on the road. The night was black, and though the town was only 2 miles from the train station, it took him more than 2 hours to reach it. Coincidentally, Sadguru Narayan Maharaj happened to be visiting devotees in Kopergaon, but Merwanji did not stop to see him. He passed through the city and headed straight to Sakori, about 10 miles away. At one junction on the road, a policeman stopped Merwanji and warned him not to wander on the dark road, for the area had abounded with thieves. The policeman was holding Merwanji's coat sleeve, trying to persuade him to stay the night in Kopergaon, when Merwanji roughly pushed his hand away and shook his arm loose. Merwanji then glared at the policeman in such an intense, forceful manner that the fellow actually stumbled back, thinking he might be in danger. Merwanji, however, immediately fell at the policeman's feet and begged his pardon. The man did not know what to think as Merwanji rose and turned away, walking off into the desolate blackness of the moonless night. The radiant glow on Merwanji's face could not be hidden, even in his dazed condition. The policeman stared at the strange young man as he disappeared into the night, puzzled by this chance encounter. After Merwanji reached the village of Limgaon, 2 miles from Shirdi, a strange incident occurred. Suddenly, out of the blackness, 4 large dogs bounded towards him. They barked ferociously, but did not bite him. Paying no attention to their threats, Merwanji continued walking. A little farther along the road, 4 more wild dogs appeared and barked at him, but he paid no heed to them also and walked on. After some distance, another pack of 4 dogs rushed at Merwanji, and this time they seemed ready to attack. But Merwanji did not show the least fear. The dogs surrounded him menacingly and began to bark furiously. Merwanji suddenly got an impulse to run as fast as he could. He took off with the dogs racing after him, howling crazily. Merwanji ran fast and left the dogs behind. He continued running until he reached Shirdi. At about 3:30 in the morning, he stopped on the outskirts of the village and glanced in each direction. Deciding not to go to Sai Baba, he lay down to rest alongside the road for a few hours. After January 1914, Merwan never actually slept again. A God-realized person's rest is not like that of an ordinary man. Such a being is always awake and does not sleep. God-realized individuals can be said to rest at a point on the particular plane of consciousness where they station themselves. At dawn, Merwanji got up from the roadside and strode rapidly towards Sakori, crossing the 7-mile distance in about an hour. No sooner had Merwanji stepped near Upasni Maharaj's hut than Upasni's close woman disciple, Durgabai, arrived carrying a large dead dog in her arms. She told Maharaj that the dog had fallen into a well and had died during the night. As she gazed at Merwanji, she silently handed the carcass to him. Taking the dead animal in his arms, he ran far away with it and threw it into a pit. He then ran back and joined Upasni in his hut. No one knew of Merwanji's earlier encounters with the 3 packs of wild dogs. The villagers discussed the event of the dead dog for several days, because dogs seldom ever falls into wells. It was a strange occurrence, and being superstitious, they wondered what it meant. Of course, none knew of what Merwanji had passed through that same night. Wearing the same coat and pants, Merwanji stayed with Upasni Maharaj for 8 days and then returned to Pune. In addition to visiting Upasni Maharaj in Sakori regularly, Merwanji later started corresponding with him. However, most of the contents of the letters or messages appeared to be indecipherable by anyone else but them. Occasionally, Merwanji sent Upasni messages through either Behramji or later through two close associates, Sadashiv Patil and Sayyid Sahib. Behramji tried to read the messages but found them to be too mysterious. Although the language of the letters was simple, the sentences seemed meaningless. Later, Merwanji would send parcels to Upasni of various items Merwanji's aunt Pila Masi would prepare. The parcels were also strange. For example, in one, Merwanji sent to Pasni just a needle and thread. Pila Masi and Masaji moved next door to Bhopla house. Pila Masi's health was failing due to a serious asthmatic condition and tuberculosis, and she was confined to her bed. Merwanji loved her and would come to see her every day. She lived only for his visits. They talked about God and the saints most of the time, and he also told her about his trips to Sakori and about Upasni Maharaj's greatness. She would then ask, "But Merag, when will you take me with you to Sakori? I must meet this Maharaj at least once." Her nephew would reply, "Masi, I will definitely take you to him. Don't worry, I promise." Pila Masi's affliction worsened, and one day Merwanji was called to come immediately. After sitting with her and holding her hands, he mixed some udi, dhoni ash, in a glass of sugared water and told her, "This ash is sacred. It is from Upasni Maharaj's dhuni. Drink it, and by tomorrow you will be well. You will be cured forever." She drank it, and he continued, "Masi, do you know what I'm going to do for you tomorrow? I'm going to take you to Upasni Maharaj." Squeezing Merwanji's hand tightly, she smiled with gratitude and love. The next day, Pila Masi died. Merwanji consoled his uncle, "Masaji, don't worry. The responsibility of looking after Aspandir and Naja is now with me. I will take care of them. I accept full responsibility for them. Don't worry about your children. They are mine now." Naja was around 9 years old and Aspandir was 14. Both could not stop crying, and Merwanji consoled them too, saying, "Cousins, why are you crying? Am I not here to look after you? Did you want your mother to suffer more? It is much better that she has passed away. Now she is peaceful, enjoying rest in heaven. Isn't this better? She is happy, I promise you." The children were greatly comforted, and Merwanji held them tenderly. After Pila Masi's death, Masaji moved from Pune to Ahmednagar, and his children went to live with their aunt Dola Masi. During October 1917, Merwanji was staying with Upasni Maharaj at Sakori. One night, Upasni sent Merwanji to Shirdi to see Gustaji, who was then living under Sai Baba's guidance and had been fasting for months. Merwanji arrived about 11 at night and found Gustaji, who was astonished to learn that Merwanji had come just to see him. After Merwanji inquired about his health, the prolonged fasting had reduced him almost to a skeleton. Gustaji started talking about Sai Baba. Gustaji had been present in Shirdi in December 1915 when Merwanji had first met Sai Baba, and he heard Sai Baba utter, "Parvardigar," when Merwanji prostrated before him. Merwanji was about to leave when Gustaji suggested he come with him for Sai Baba's darshan before departing. Merwanji replied, "I have no time. I must leave for Pune." His leaving without meeting Sai Baba further convinced Gustaji that Merwanji had come to Shirdi for the sole purpose of befriending him. On 1st February 1918, a son named Dinshaw was born to Merwanji's friends Khodu and Naja. The next day, Merwanji visited them in the hospital and casually remarked, "My first disciple has been born." They did not understand what he meant and took it as a joke, as no one thought of Merwan as a spiritual master yet. But this was about to change. Since Merwanji was seen regularly seated next to Babajan, her own followers began to inquire about him. She did not answer directly, but she often repeated to them, "Merwan is my son, my beloved son. He is why I am here in Pune. One day my son will shake the whole world. You have no idea of his greatness." Gradually, Babajan's followers started to look upon Merwanji with respect and reverence. One of Babajan's devotees was Babu Rao Kenuba Ubale, 18. Being the owner of a bicycle shop, he was known as Babu Cyclewala. Babu heard Babajan speak of Merwanji often and was so taken by Babajan's statement that he sought Merwanji out and began spending time in his company. He was overpowered by his love and was one of the first to recognize Merwanji's majesty. Kai Khushru Irani was the son of Sheriyarji's elder brother, Khodadat. The family lived in Bombay, and from childhood, Kai Khushru had played with Merwan and later greatly admired his cousin. Unfortunately, around January 1918, in the prime of his youth, Kai Khushru suddenly died at the age of 32. Kai Khushru had been a virtuous young man and his father's right hand in the family's business. Khodadad and his family were deeply stricken with grief. The tragic news reached Bobo and Mimo, who decided that Merwan should be sent to represent the family and on their behalf participate in the funeral ceremony. He was to return after 4 days when the last rites were completed. Although Merwan had been on close terms with his cousin, he did not react as if Kai Khushru's death was such a tragedy. Understanding the true nature of life and death, Merwan knew it was not possible for him to express sorrow or grief at the funeral. He was aware of the usual proceedings of wailing and weeping at funerals, and he knew that he would offend his uncle if he did not exhibit such emotions. He did not look forward to 4 days of lamentation and tried to escape this responsibility. But his parents insisted that he attend. Merwan took a train to Bombay and went to the family's home, where he found the expected gloomy atmosphere of mourning. Despite his efforts, Merwan could not bring himself to express any sign of grief. Fortunately, a perfect stratagem arose. On seeing the white-gowned corpse displayed on the stone floor, Merwan relaxed his whole body, turned his eyes upwards, and fell on the floor as if in a swoon. Thinking that he had fainted, the family tried various remedies to bring him around. When he revived, after some time, he was made to lie on a bed. Thus he escaped attending the funeral. When the mourners returned, Khodadad was worried about Merwan. He was as dear to his uncle as his own son had been. He was aware of Merwan's traumas and thought it best to send his favorite nephew back to Pune on the next train. Merwan, relieved to escape the depressing atmosphere, expressed his sympathy to all the other relatives before departing. Meanwhile, owing to Jamshed's ill health and Bombay's inclement weather, Jamshed had moved back to Pune, where he was employed in the military accounts department. Dr. Ghani's father worked in the same department, so it is likely Jamshed's position was facilitated by him. He had also gotten married to a first cousin named Khorshid. Khorshid was the daughter of Shirin Mai's brother Dinshaw Mama and his wife Rawat. Khorshid, 19, had preferred to marry Merwan and had her eye on him for a long time. Merwan knew this and had therefore persuaded Jamshed to marry her. Jamshed did not want to marry the girl, but Merwan pressured him to agree to this arranged marriage. Merwanji's father Sheriyarji was a kind and generous man. Even when Bobo was older, he had the forbearance of an ascetic. He had not become wealthy but was successful in his toddy shop. He gave money to the poor and distributed not only financial help but blankets and clothing as well. If the toddy shop closed unusually late at night, Sheriarji would sleep there instead of returning home. Having slept many a night in the cold as a wandering dervish, he knew what it was to sleep on the streets. If he saw any poor person shivering in the cold, he would inevitably give his own blanket to him. This happened so often that one day Mimo remarked caustically, "If we had collected the amount of blankets Shorog has given away, we could have opened the blanket shop by now." As the years went on, Mimo never gave up hope that Merog would be cured of his mental affliction, settle down with a family, and make something of his life. Behramji was a shrewd businessman and had several tea shops and toddy shops in Pune by this time. One day, Mimo took him aside and offered to advance half the money necessary to start another toddy shop if Behramji would take Merag as a partner. Behramji was delighted and agreed to her offer. On 1st August 1918, Behramji procured a liquor license. This time he remembered to have it in his own name, and in partnership with Merwanji, opened a new toddy shop at 723 Kasbah Pet.